It's a podcast. It's Ayun. I don't know if that was yawning or moaning, but I think it's very insensitive to do that 5 minutes before I'm probably about to talk about child murders. So, this has to be the last part. Like, I don't want to be subjecting you to any more parts of this because it's quite depressing for me to just go through it again. Because again, these are child murders. Like, remember that these children are 9 and 6. So I don't care. Let's just jump back right into it. The last time we left off, we were talking about Dara Singh. And we had managed to at least introduce or at least talk a little bit about Dara Singh, the main villain of the story, the antagonist of the story. Well, unless you're a Hindu nationalist, in which case he's a hero. But why are you listening to this? Go, shoo. But if you're here anyway, just leave a like, subscribe, because I heard that one Hindu nationalist like is equal to 10,000 Muslim likes or something. I don't know. I saw it on WhatsApp. But anyways, yeah. So, January 22nd, 1999 was just another day in the Staines household. The children had been back with their parents enjoying winter break. Graham, like he did for decades, started his day by talking to his family and then the people in his congregation. These people, for whom he had arguably been more helpful than their government at times throughout these decades. He had planned to attend various Bible meets set up across the district throughout the day. His two sons, Philip and Timothy, aged 9 and 6 respectively, decided to accompany their father for the day, while his daughter Esther, who was 14 at the time, decided to stay back with their mother in Baripada. They had camps planned at various villages across the area, starting in Manoharpur, a village about 200 kilometers away from Baripada. As it was late after the festivities were done and the next location at least 100 kilometers away, the family decided to rest up at Manoharpur. With the members of the congregation that had joined them on the journey resting up in a local church, the two children made their bed alongside their father in the station wagon, or more precisely one of those forced cheap travelers on that very cold January night. Now, this back then was a forest clearing, so like an open plot of land surrounded by dense trees. And from these trees, around midnight, 50 men carrying firelit torches and swords emerged. Witnesses report that after a few moments of scouting the occupants of the wagon, the goons soon set it alight, using the petrol they had been carrying along, just as Staines and his boys had jolted up from their sleep. Hearing the commotion, some villagers, who also included converted Christians, tried to check what was happening, and after noticing the wagon occupied by Staines and his family was surrounded, they tried to go help the man. They, however, were bolted shut in their houses and further intimidated by the goons, who said that the same fate would befall them if they tried to play hero. The goons stood by the wagon as it burned. It's winter, so obviously the vehicle had its windows rolled up, which at this point had shattered due to the heat from the fire. This caused the still alive but gravely burnt victims in the wagon to try crawling their way out of this misery. The Hindutva goons responded to this by bringing out large sticks and using them to push back the victims, who, I remind you once again, were 9 and 6 respectively. The villagers, the one who loved Staines and for all his service, and the ones who hated him for his alleged forced conversions, all watched in horror as the children burned alongside their father, with the torch bearers of religion watching on. An alternate version of the story, which is too on the nose for me to believe, says that one of these perpetrators who pushed back the children and their father into the burning vehicles used a Trishul to do it. So the terrorist had left as soon as the bodies inside stopped moving, disappearing back into the darkness of the forest. All that was left were charred remains. Gladys Staines was only informed in the early hours of January 23rd that the wagon her sons and husband were travelling in was set on fire. Though she had already come to terms with the worst, it took about another 5 hours for the news to finally reach Baripada. Despite the cruelty with which all of it had gone down, Gladys's first reaction to the entire situation was an urgent appeal to forgiveness towards the perpetrators. While Gladys would certainly have wanted that, a white man and his sons being slaughtered by second-tier local politicians/gundas would be something that got the full force of the law behind you in any century of Indian history, and so it was. The ruling BJP government was quick to deny all association Dara held with the party while also trying to whitewash the role of the Bajrang Dal. For this, the BJP sent then Defence Minister George Fernandes to the scene. And I have to say, from being among the chief opponents of Indira Gandhi during emergency to becoming a PR agent for child murders is a substantial fall from grace. As is tradition today, obviously none of what happened was an indictment on our people or a system, but a malicious foreign hand trying to tarnish the image of the Indian government. What's worse, some among the local Odisha BJP even went on to blame the victims instead of Dara Singh, with the district head of the party in Baripada saying that the missionaries were sitting on a haystack and should have been more careful to take the warnings. And wow, there cannot be a worse way to phrase that specific incident. Their objection to Stain's activities included the newly converted Christians having no regard for tribal agricultural traditions, encouraging them to eat beef, an animal sacred in Hinduism, and finally for handing out undergarments and sanitary towels, which, apart from the last one, I can understand you having an issue with the man, but burning his children alive for it is the conclusion only a terrorist can make. As I said earlier, Dara and his men were involved in 2 more murders while on the run. It became evident that the Odisha police or its crime branch were incapable or perhaps unwilling to capture Singh. The case was transferred to the CBI, who even before his capture had concluded by an investigation that Singh's actions deserved the worst punishment the justice system could offer. After nearly a year, Singh and his associates were captured by the Special Task Force of the Odisha police. There was an outpouring of support for Singh from hardline Hindus right after his capture, a trend that continues to this day. In his jail cell, Singh was sought for many interviews, scarcely granting a few. In these, he is adamant that he never committed those crimes, but in the very same breath is happy to throw his subordinates under the bus. Most of his interviews have been contradictions after contradiction, which is chiefly highlighted by how much pride he shows in having so many young men and organizations under his control and then just denying any involvement in the crimes that he's very sure his comrades committed. And this is what you have to do as a fascist or a terrorist, right? Like, obviously, no sane person can endure the burning of a child, so you associate them with criminals. It gets easier to justify, but maybe to yourself. To the general human population, these crimes are not. Singh keeps parroting these same points about his religion being endangered, and here is where fascistic thugs are never to be trusted. You didn't feel your religion was threatened. You were emboldened because a party that has repeatedly endorsed violence under the same campaign as yours of like saving an endangered religion, that party was in power. You thought that it would be swiped under a rug, but it wasn't, so you now distance yourself from it. Why do you think mob lynching started to go mainstream once the BJP got back into power? Was it because the religion was endangered? No, I think not, because the Hindu Nationalist Party was just voted into power. No, the ones who want to keep using religion to live out their deranged fantasies felt emboldened by it. Simple as. Now, the following is an excerpt from one of Singh's interviews in prison. Question: did you kill the Christian missionary Graham Stuart Staines and his young children? Answer: no, I didn't kill them, but I spearheaded the movement against missionaries. I was also actively involved in the movement against illegal trade in cows and cow slaughter. Since I was possibly the most famous name in the region, the police implicated me in the killings. The day the Staines were killed at Manoharpur, I was at least 12-13 kilometers away from the place. But yes, I did not like Graham Staines. For that, I never liked missionaries. Question: why didn't you like them? Answer: missionaries have been targeting our religion, been converting Hindus by deceit and inducements. Our religion is under siege. Or as a true Hindu, it was my responsibility to oppose them. Therefore, I worked in the region organizing people against conversions and cow slaughter. Question: so you admit you were involved in hijacking trucks and transporting cows and setting the animals free? There are over 10 such police cases pending against you. Answer: I was not involved personally, but my supporters might have done it. The situation was such that the methods had to be adopted. The local police did not do their duty. They took bribes from the cow traders openly and in some cases actually escorted the trucks. When the police neglected their duty, our supporters had to step in. Cow slaughter had to be stopped at any cost. Question: what about the 2 subsequent murders of Sheikh Rahman in Padibeda and Father Arul Das in Jamboni? You are a suspect in both cases. Answer: I was not involved, but then my supporters could have committed them. For besides opposing the missionaries, there has been a movement even against the Muslims in this area. And possibly both Rahman and Das had personal enmities or something. Question: but why oppose voluntary conversions? Answer: we are not opposed to that, but we are opposed to conversions by inducements, which are more the rule. There has been a rule here. The people are even being bribed with paddy to convert. No one converts on his own here. That is why the administration has no records of conversions. No one notifies. But the law should be equal for all, no? Question. So you were not involved, but your supporters could have been behind the killings? Maybe yes, maybe no. Hindus are opposed to both Muslims and Christians, and the fight is still on here. In fact, it's a fact of life that when there is a fight, some people have to die. Question, but what about Stain's two children, Phillips and Timothy? Why did they have to die? Answer, I don't know. I have nothing to say. Question, you surely must be regretting the death of these two children? Answer, no. I have no regrets, and I will never regret. I have other important things to regret, like the loss of lives in the Orissa cyclone. I also regret the regular killings of Indian Jawans by missionary-backed insurgents in the northeast. When Hindus die, others don't cry. Why should we weep when others die? Whatever has happened is right. Whatever will happen will also be right. And yes, that's the state of mind that these terrorists have fostered for the last 4 decades. Complicity of the system in this whole atrocity cannot be denied, as a Supreme Court hearing about commuting Dara's sentence to life imprisonment said that, quote, those Stains and his 2 minor sons were burned to death while they were asleep inside a station wagon. The intention was to teach them a lesson, namely about their religious activities, converting poor tribals to Christianity. End quote. Remarks that were obviously later expunged from the records after a very valid outcry, because these are things a stupid person says. If you are optimistic that the support for such elements has died down, you are not really paying attention or living in this country for that matter. As recently as 2022, calls and even protests for the release of Dara Singh have been going mainstream. These protests have been headed by Suresh Chawanke, the head of Sudarshan TV. Now, if you don't know what Sudarshan TV is, it's one of those TV channels that should ideally limit its existence to a conspiracy nut YouTube outlet in any country with, civil press regulations. But neither are we civil, neither are we a country, and neither do we have press regulations. So, we are here. Now, Chawanke himself has used the rhetoric of Dara being a reformed convict, or that his position as a Hindutva foot soldier means he can never do anything wrong. If that wasn't depressing enough, Odisha's latest chief minister, Mohan Charan Manji, the one who dethroned Naveen Patnaik from an office he held for nearly 2 decades, was an active member of these protests in 2022. So, great on the optics of civility as well. I won't kill all the optimism in your eyes or your heart or wherever optimism lies, because I think there is one good story that I can relate to this specific thing. So Pratap Sarangi was one of the earliest members that was sent on scene, that is to Baribada, in order to control the narrative of the Stains killing. He was in fact among the very first to accuse Graham Stains of forced conversions and molestation, things that were obviously later dismissed through court investigations. But yeah, Pratap Sarangi was one of the first people there on the ground, and he is currently an MP, so that's depressing. But recently, in perhaps one of the only acts against fascism Rahul Gandhi has taken since the 2024 elections, he allegedly pushed down Pratap Sarangi from a flight of stairs in the parliament. And that led to Narangi, whatever his name is, showing up in public. After every hour, he just looked more and more like the mummy from the movies. Now, I don't condone pushing people downstairs, especially if they are seniors. Respect them. But it would be incredibly hilarious if India's only way out of fascism would be this elite babe, like the most elite baby born in the history of free India, just pushing down these people one by one until no one else is left in the parliament, just 540, 520, whatever seats are just empty, and it's Rahul Gandhi waiting outside to push away anyone who dares to come inside. I can work with that. We don't need a communist revolution, we just need Rahul Gandhi pushing people upstairs. Now, to wrap this up, Gladys Staines has remained adamant about showing mercy to the killers of her husband and children while waiting for any evidence to suggest that her husband was involved in forced conversions. This story should ideally evoke disgust in every nerve of your body, but it most likely won't. The horrors that one could only witness in the front lines of battle or a city that has fallen to siege is something that we can, in the modern day, experience while luxuriously shitting into porcelain bowls. There is absolutely no hope to sensitize any of us. Bye.